live. It's Two Sisters Writing and Publishing, live author interviews Fridays at 2:12 p.m. Eastern. Today we have the honor and privilege and pleasure of interviewing our mother, who wrote her own memoir, and we published it, Two Sisters Writing and Publishing, last October, and we are going to talk to her about that today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So you wrote the book, The Triumph of Rosemary, a memoir by Judge Marylin E. Atkins. It's a phenomenal story about how you overcame rejection by your Italian birth family, adopted by a Black family, abused by your mother physically and emotionally, the horrific things she said and did, and then creating a racial and religious scandal when you married a Roman Catholic priest who was 25 years older than you. He was white, you were Black. And then you had us, and then you embarked on this journey to become a lawyer so you could put us through college. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And then become chief judge of Detroit's largest municipal court, which was a tremendous feat. So what inspired you to write your book yourself?
Well, I had been encouraged by both you and Catherine to write my story for a number of years, and I knew that I couldn't write it until after I retired because it's so personal. It's too much personal information when you're running for office. So I retired in 2012. I began writing the book finally in 2016. Took me until May of 2017 to write the book. But my inspiration to write the book was you and Catherine.
Mm-hmm. So throughout the process, like over the years, you had tried to start writing your book and it just didn't come. And then all of a sudden it was like the floodgates opened. What was that like? You would wake up at 4 a.m. Tell us about how your writing process.
I started it off, it is in chronological order, and I started it off looking through the eyes of the social worker who worked with my adopted parents to have them be able to adopt me. And there was a tug of war back and forth between my Italian biological family and the adopted family. So I started it out through her eyes, and then it became first person when I said my adoption became final and I give the date. But once I did that and I started looking at my life, everything fell in chronological order and in great detail. So I just kept going, and I would remember things year after year that happened to me.
Mm-hmm. So that's an excellent point, because writing a memoir is extremely difficult because you have to relive your most painful moments in life. And I know I've read your book over and over because Catherine and I edited it, and it's outstanding. But every time I read certain passages, I burst into tears. I'm bawling like a baby. But then other times I'm laughing, and then sometimes I'm laughing and crying at the same time. So tell us how difficult it was to relive the painful moments as a writer.
Well, I have to admit, it was not painful at all. The things that the abuse that I suffered at the hands of my adopted mother, and my realization that my biological family did not want me, I put that in a box and put it away, way in the attic of my brain, years and years, decades ago. So pulling them out was not painful. It wasn't tragic. I just told the story. It wasn't therapy. I just wanted to tell the story.
Excellent. So tell us, was it fun? I mean, did you enjoy the process? Because we would call you and you're like, I can't talk right now, I'm writing.
Well, being a lawyer, heretofore, all my writings had been in the legal field, and I had never written a story before. So I wanted to make sure that I was able to write something that wasn't legal. And what I did was I said, I'm going to write this like I'm talking to people, like I'm sitting there talking to them and telling them what happened to me.
Mm-hmm. And so, how do you feel now that you've accomplished this? You wrote your book, we published it. Now, people are reading it and sharing their feedback. How does it feel?
It feels wonderful. I'm glad I did it. It's a legacy, and I love that. The greatest compliment has been I can't put it down. I picked it up. I read it in 2 days. I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. A lot of things happened to me in my life, both good and bad. That's why you'll laugh and cry, and sometimes do both at the same time. But that's the greatest compliment, and I feel like it's a great accomplishment. And I'm proud of what I have done. I'm proud of the two of you for your business, for your uh, publishing my book. It probably doesn't happen very often where you have two daughters publishing their mother's book.
I don't think so.
Right. I think we're a trio of first.
It is really, really unique and possibly unprecedented. Yeah, we're really honored that we got to publish your book. It's been really fun. I mean, you showing us all the pictures from your childhood, like when Grandpop was showing you how to use a hammer, and you're holding a big old board, and you're just this tall, and then helping to build your cottage up north. It's our cottage now. When you were a little girl sawing down trees. I mean, it's remarkable. Your story is incredible. And
That's
so,
what people say, and I love it. I love it.
mhm.
Somebody told me yesterday. She said I really laughed. She said it was so funny in certain parts, and then other parts were sad. But she said it was absolutely fascinating. So I'm proud of the product.
Yeah.
Very proud of the product.
So what's your message to people out there who, for years and years, like yourself, are saying, oh, you should write a book, you should write a book, but they're scared or they don't know where to start? What's your advice to them?
Sit down, make some time, and write it. Make a plan, which I really didn't have. Uh, I just sat down and started from my birth and just kept going. But making a plan is probably the best thing to do. Have a format. And, I've heard you two talk about targeted audience. Well, I didn't have a targeted audience. It's whomever has gone through anything, I'm hoping will be inspired by my book because I don't want to give anything away, but it turned out fine. I went through a lot, and it turned out fine.
So there's a couple messages in there that, first of all, to young women who face a lot of obstacles, abuse. You had an abusive boyfriend. You were married very, very early. You had me very early. You left college because your father had a heart attack. Then you had two little babies, a husband who was working in a flower shop, hardly making any money. And the odds were stacked against you every step of the way. However, you persevered. You understood the importance of education, working hard, and ascending in your career. Can you talk to people about the message that you share about how you can overcome obstacles with hard work and dedication?
Well, my book is, my life has been, first of all, being born biracial. And then I have an interracial marriage. I have an abusive mother. I have an abusive boyfriend. And I persevere I know that I need more education because your father being the age he was, when it was time for the two of you to start college, he would be it would be time for him to retire. So you make a plan, and teamwork is what we did all the time, from the time we got married, before we got married, because, there were forces saying, you shouldn't do this. The bishop said, you're going to be excommunicated. You're going to hell. You can't do this. So we hooked up as a team, and the strength of our love is what made everything work. Any of the things that I have named, if anybody is going through any of that, they can look and see what I did and how I overcame it. If you have, if you're in an abusive relationship, whether it's parental or your boyfriend or your husband or whatever, see what I did with that. If you're a Catholic and you're having problems and you might think you're excommunicated, there is an answer in my book to all of those things. But I think the bottom line is the love that your father and I shared, and the fact that we did truly become one in order to live our lives and have a good marriage for 24 years until he died.
Beautiful. And this story is an excellent tribute to our father, who we grew up watching Journal at the kitchen table every evening while we were doing homework, and you were at law school at night because you worked full time and went to law school at night when we were in elementary school. So Daddy was a tremendous inspiration for all of us to be writers. And so tell us about anything you might have done differently.
In my life?
No, as a writer.
Oh, as a writer, maybe I would have, instead of starting it in 2016, maybe I would have started it. Really, I did start it before I retired. I had these legal pads and I would just jot things down. But I think the only thing I would change in terms of writing it, I would have done it the year after I graduated. And I mean doing it 4 years after, there's nothing wrong with that. But
do you mean after you retired?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right, after I retired.
Okay. You said graduated.
Oh, I did? Oh.
You graduated into, retirement.
Yeah, I would have, maybe I would have started, I would have written it in 2013.
Oh, okay.
Or 2014 instead of 2016. Just, that's the only thing I would change. I would not change anything about the story. I wouldn't change anything about my life, because everything that I went through in my life made me the person I am.
Mm-hmm. So everybody who reads it says it's got to be a movie. So we're working on the screenplay. So we'll talk about that next time.
Yes,
so it can be a movie to showcase your life. And we want George Clooney to play Daddy, and we want Zoe Saldana to play our mother.
Yes. Yes.
Perfect
so the bottom
casting.
Line is the bottom line is write your memoir as soon as you can, right?
That's an excellent message.
Right.
That's the takeaway from here today. Write it now, and we can
write it now. Which brings us to, it's Facebook Live with Two Sisters Writing and Publishing every Friday at 2:12 p.m. in 2018, and we're doing Write Your Book Now. Let's write your book now. And today we've interviewed our mother, Judge Marylin Atkins, on her book, The Triumph of Rosemary. So thank everybody for joining us, and we will see you again here next Friday.
Thanks, Ma, for a wonderful interview.
I love you.
We love you
too.
too.